Thank you for tuning in to the Honestly Honest podcast. This is your host, Tierra Bevs, and I have Terriyln Battle on the phone with me. So Terry, well, I call her Terry. So Terriyln just sounds like it's odd for me to say your full name. But so Terry, we go back once again, ECU days. I love my ECU friends, girls. It's just always been just a great experience in college, just meeting the different people that I've met. And Terry is definitely one of those amazing people that I've met through Signature Sounds. You know, you and your twin sister Deb, but had a great experience just, singing along with her and just continuing our friendship throughout college. But Terry, you go ahead and, introduce yourself as how you would like everybody to know you.
Well, I'm very modest. So I'll say I recently received my doctorate. So some people have made the transition to calling me Dr. Battle for kicks and giggles. But I'm used to Terry. I'm authentically me and will be Terry until the end. So Terrilyn is the best for me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, don't be too modest, doctor. Congratulations on that. No, that took
Thank you.
How long were you working towards that title?
I was in the program for 3 years.
Wow.
Three trying years, but it was beautiful.
Girl. So, and now I know we had spoke before then, but you are now like relocated. You up north now from were you in North Carolina before?
Where was I before? I was in Greensboro.
Okay, that's right.
And
now
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Greensboro, North Kakalaki. And now you up in New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Okay, well let's bring it back. I wanna lead up until the present. So so you just recently graduated with a doctorate in rehabilitation counseling, correct?
Yes.
So what inspired you to pursue that?
So I have a background. My undergraduate is from ECU in psychology, minor in child development, family relations. And after I finished that program, I was like, I have to go back to school because there's nothing I could do with just a bachelor's in psych. So I ended up coming across a rehabilitation counseling program at Winston-Salem State, where I enrolled, went through that program for 2 years. And then I worked for vocational rehabilitation agencies, which is a federal state agency for helping individuals who have disabilities find employment. So I was working with transition age youth, so students that were about 16 in high school who had IEPs, 504 plans, and they wanted to find employment, but they may have had like some kind of learning disability or physical impairments that caused barriers to them finding employment. I've also worked with adults with mental health diagnosis, trying to help them find employment. And I remember having some and I went to a number of different offices. I worked in a number of different offices in different states. So each federal state agency kind of ran differently. But I recall being in one of the offices, and I asked one of my coworkers, I say, do you think that there could be more supports in place in terms of on-site counseling for individuals instead of, us saying, all right, well, that's not in my scope because I'm not supposed to be counseling beyond the vocational piece. I have to refer you out. But what happens if the counselor doesn't refer them out and they're still having these battles, trying to navigate employment, but they can't find employment because they're not paying attention to their mental health and different things. So I asked her that, and And she was like, well, yeah, that would be helpful, but that ain't what we do here. So we're
Wow.
going to focus on vocational. And I was like, I understand that, but, do you think it would be beneficial? And she kind of turned it down again. And right then and there, I was like, I have to go back to school because there's some policy things that need to be addressed, and there's more collaboration that can be put in place
Yes.
for underrepresented groups and marginalized groups. And that's what led me to that
Yes.
rehab counseling.
Okay. I love that. I
Hmm.
definitely hear like just passion in that.
Yeah.
Um, just connecting where there's that disconnect because that is so like I love that you highlighted that as far as,
Yeah.
once you once we're no longer able to help you, you're just kind of like you verbalize we'll be able to help you, but there's really no action taken
Yeah.
after that. I feel like that happens in
Yeah.
so many areas, like throughout these different industries and job titles and stuff. Like it's just that's not in my job description. So, but it's like when your
Hmm.
passion really shines out, it like you make it your like a part of your description. Like I'll try to help you out, which I see in your story. Like that's where it's gonna connect. Like you about to make some huge needed changes that'll definitely help those who need the help. Like that's
Yeah.
I love that. So
Thank you.
yes, yes. So along the way throughout the program, have you found a way to kind of get to your initial purpose of going in there? Like do you feel like it's going to, for one, have you already started taking action steps towards you know, I guess removing that disconnect, or do you foresee there being any options as far as making that connection and filling the gap?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Because so my dissertation was focused on looking at African American non-veteran individuals who identified as homeless at time of application for federal state vocational rehab services. So what I found in the study was there was a significant lack of literature for specifically African American homeless individuals accessing vocational rehab services, and there's a lack of research pertaining to homeless individuals who are not veterans as a
Wow.
whole accessing vocational rehab services. So my study findings kind of focused on some of the things that the participants were saying in their experiences. Some of them had great experiences. Some of them were like, well, I would refer people to vocational rehab, but it just didn't pan out the way I had hoped
Yeah.
because I felt like there was some disconnect in terms of the relationship. Um, One of the clients did not trust her team because they weren't as present as she would have liked. And then I saw so many barriers that kept raising its head for each of the participants. But the study overall is informing policy and the need to look at if you're training us as counselors to be culturally competent and be aware of working with various backgrounds, why aren't we getting more direction and more uh, studies targeted towards populations like underrepresented groups like homelessness?
Yeah.
Or we know that homelessness is present, heavily present with individuals who have addictions and have mental health diagnoses. So all of that goes together. You can't serve one without serving the other.
Yeah.
So it's informing policy, and a lot of times vocational rehab help individuals who have addiction. They really help individuals who have a diagnosis of mental health. So why is this group going unrecognized? So it's kind of, my hope is that it would shift them to look at this population as a whole and say, all right, well, we do need to put more emphasis on the needs that they have.
Yes.
We're all a step away from a paycheck, you know.
Girl, well, I definitely am believing that you will be one of the many to, start making the changes or start, bringing it to the attention of those who, I guess, make those decisions. Or girl,
Yeah.
shoot, it might be you sooner than later. Okay.
Fingers crossed. Let's do it.
Okay, but so another question I wanted to lead into. So I know you had informed me that you had experienced, or I'm not sure if you still are experiencing, the imposter phenomenon, which is something that you have
Mm,
actually kind of well, we'll go into that later, but it's something that you're highlighting a lot lately, as from what I've
mm,
seen. But what sparked the beginning of your
mm.
imposter phenomenon? And what is imposter
I
phenomenon, if you don't mind?
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell a little bit about what it is first, and then kind of go into my journey with it. So, imposter phenomenon is when individuals who have talents, gifts, skills, abilities, they have these grand abilities that they can contribute to different things. However, they see themselves as not being able to meet those standards, or they see themselves as fraud, and that someone is going to see their fraudulent act and like they're going to just blow their cover. So um, there's a book that I cannot remember the name of it, but it's by Eames and Clance. They did a study on individuals to see the prominence of imposter phenomenon, and a lot of individuals, when they have worked in various settings, they've done well on tests and all of that, they felt like they were going to fail. However, they went beyond the expectations, but they were like, oh, well, that was just luck. I didn't do that because I'm really smart. That I just did that because it was luck. It was just a good day. I just so happened to read. So I'm not this smart person like everyone think I am. And eventually you're going to find that out, that I'm a fraud. So if somebody get a job, um, a great job, and they're advancing in the job, just moving up the ladder, and somebody say, you are doing an amazing job, and they're like, oh, I just got this job because I know the CEO. The CEO, he's best friends with my dad's people. That this is just luck. I fell into this. So they kind of discount their successes in a sense. And I experienced that because I was the youngest in my cohort. There were 7 individuals in my cohort, and I was the youngest. And I'm talking about a range of ages, probably like mid 50s to me being the youngest. I started the program at 29. So there was a huge range, and I felt like I did not belong there. I remember reading a textbook. It was this book called, what was it? Jesus, I can't remember any titles today.
Well, just let us know and
Um,
I'll send it out.
it was Paulo Freire and
Okay.
the pedagogy of the oppressed, or something like that. And I remember reading it, and I was so frustrated at the language that he was using, and was trying to catch myself with reading this book. And I got so frustrated, and I threw the book across the floor, like across the room. And my parents were like, "What is wrong with you?" Because they were watching TV, and all of a sudden this book goes flying across the floor. Across the room, hitting the TV just about. They were like, "What is wrong with you?" I was like, "I just can't do this. This is just too complex for me. This is too much." And I remember sitting in classes, and my cohort members were talking about experiences that they've had as supervisors, and all of these years of teaching students in the university setting, and owning daycares, and being a clinician for 10 plus years. And I was like, whoa, whoa, my experience does not like it. There's no competition at all. I can't compete with that. Like I'm a novice. I'm new to all of this. So I remember going to one of my professors, and I told her, I said, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And I also felt a sense of guilt. I don't know where this was coming from, but I'm the youngest of my family, and I was moving trying to get my doctorate. You know, I'm the youngest child, and I was like, surely my siblings are just as smart, and I felt uncomfortable being the one to run after my dreams of being a professor and different things while I knew they were fully capable as well. But I went to my professor and I told her, I said, I'm not, you know, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I don't think I'm supposed to be here right now.
Wow.
And she was like, what do you mean? So I started sharing with her how I was feeling. And she was like, have you ever heard of Imposter Phenomenon? I was like, no. And she was like, well, it's called Imposter Phenomenon, Imposter Experience, or Imposter Syndrome. So I want you to go. I was expecting her to tell me what it was. So I'm sitting in her office and I'm like, okay, well, enlighten me. You know, tell me what it is. And she was like, I'm not telling you what it is. You go do the research and you come back and tell me what it is.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we're going to do this. So I go off. And that day I go home and I start researching it, and everything, all the symptoms that it was, and it's not a diagnosable condition or a trait or anything. It's just the feelings of feeling like an imposter and a fraud. So when she told me to do that, I researched it, and it resonated with me. And that's been an area of research for me now, and it's been an area of providing counseling to individuals who have similar feelings. So that was my experience of imposter phenomenon. And now it's like I feel like I've been spending a lot of time since this program has ended, because I defended in July and things started to simmer down a little bit, try to finish up some last minute things to conclude my studies and everything. But since then, it feels like the feelings aren't as present anymore, but I do understand that imposter phenomenon is a cycle. So it never ends. You will constantly go through the cycle of feeling like an imposter. So right now, as I was trying to navigate my studies, yes, I may have felt like an imposter. Now that I'm done with that, I'm like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. But then what happens when you step into this role of academia and you're being a professor and you're trying to get a handle on teaching your students counseling skills and different things like that, and you're like, oh, eventually they're going to find out that I don't know as much as I think I know, and all of that. So it's always a cycle where you're kind of challenging yourself, like, oh, they're going to find me out.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to find me out. Well, just try to breathe through it, you know. But it's now that I know it's present, I know when it's arising, and I know when to say, all right, refocus. All right, readjust and get it together. So I'm a little more conscious of that now.
Yeah. So what are some practices that you're applying or that you recommend applying to your routine to overcome the phenomenon?
Well, I did a presentation not too long ago. I asked two of my classmates to do it with me, and we talked about imposter phenomenon and the implications of mentorship and self-reflection to combat imposter phenomenon. So with mentorship, it's helpful for us to know that we have a safe place to go and share these feelings that we have as feeling like an imposter, because the reality of it is everyone feels that way, whether they want to say they do or they don't. So it feels just like, as a whole, we're trying to normalize the whole feeling of or the sense of mental diagnosis. I think imposter phenomenon or feelings of being an imposter or a fraud should be normalized as well, because we beat ourselves up about feeling like an imposter. But when you have a mentor that's willing to say, you know what, I know you're in that space, but I have been there too. Let's talk about it. Let's navigate this together, because it fosters trust in that mentor. It helps you know that you are not going crazy and losing your mind for feelings that you can't put in words, you know? And this whole self-reflection piece, what does it look like? Me, I've been out in nature a lot. So when I'm out walking in nature and taking pictures and different things, it prompts a space of gratefulness for me and thankfulness and just being in the present and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, all right, you're not going to have everything worked out. You're not going to know everything. And
Yeah.
if you don't know some of the things that your students would come to you and ask, or if you don't know how to approach different things, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe. It doesn't mean that you're a fraud. It doesn't mean that you're an imposter. It does not mean anything negative. All it means is that you're in a space to learn and grow from that.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the research. That's just another tool in your toolbox. And another thing that I do a lot of is journaling. So just kind of, I do a lot of self reflection anyway. So doing the journaling piece, I'm kind of capturing those feelings of what it felt like for that day because it may
Yeah.
present itself in a different way each time.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, that cycle, you know, and it's an amazing cycle to look at because you have two different ways you could go through imposter phenomenon. Like you could go through it as an overachiever or you could go through it as a procrastinator.
Mm-hmm.
And as an overachiever, you are investing all of this time and these thoughts and everything into the activity. And then once you're done with the activity, you're still critical of yourself, even though you put in all of that time because you expect everything to be perfect. As a
Mm-hmm.
procrastinator, you're like, oh, I did not put in enough time. But let's say your boss or somebody is like, all right, this was really good. And you're sitting there like, you think that was good? I didn't do anything. In your head, you're like, I didn't even do anything. That was like the bare minimum. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, that was luck. So the cycle can go many different ways. And just knowing that it is okay that you feel like this, but it's not where you have to stay.
Yes.
It's not what defines you.
Yes. Now, Dr. Battle,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a mix.
Hmm.
I'm a mix of both of them, depending on the situation. Because, like, not on as far as like the procrastinator,
Uh-huh.
I remember like back in the day, like in school days, when you know those people who
Hmm.
would just like not even study for a test, but they would be coming out with an A. Like, I was never
Hmm.
that type of procrastinator, but still, like, if I would have something like a good outcome of something, just be like, really? Like, shoot, if you like that,
Hmm.
then let me try this. Like, but
Right.
I definitely think I like that you said that pretty much everybody experiences this imposter phenomenon because I definitely agree with you. It's so sad for me to say this, but I kind of I felt that way once I started watching a little bit more reality TV
Hmm.
back in the days. I don't watch it as much now, but
Hmm.
like you just see a lot of the celebrities like experiencing
Hmm.
like you just see their true selves and
Yeah.
their ups and downs and their what if moments and self doubts and whatnot and we're over
Hmm.
here like society's just looking at them like oh shoot like we can't relate and now everybody trying to be
Right.
like best friends with the Kardashians and everything and whatever but it's definitely like helped me in a way to know like okay everybody's not like living this perfect rainbow and sunshines type
Mm-mm.
of life like
Mm-mm.
we definitely are experiencing moments of like man am I enough
Yeah.
so thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that. I didn't know there were like the two differences within, I guess, two tiers underneath that phenomenon either. So that's
Hmm.
good to know too. But I'll be diagnosed. So I wanted to also. So you recently launched a new business. Um,
Hmm.
during was it during the pandemic
It
or
was during the pandemic. Yes.
yes? So can you let's talk about that. What is it? What's the name? Like what is it about? What do you provide? How did it start off? Like I want all the deets.
Hmm. Yeah, so it's called the Right Branch Counseling and Consulting Services, PLLC.
Mm.
And the Right Branch is spelled WRIGHT, and it's a play on names. I felt like this was a godsend. Actually, I'm not even gonna lie, because for the longest time I wanted a private practice,
Mm.
and trying to do that in the midst of school, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic happened.
Mm.
And due to the pandemic, my dissertation was put on a halt for a second because it was difficult trying to find participants because of the pandemic and there was a lack of responses. So, in the midst of the time where that was stalled, I started pouring my energy into building this practice. And I was like, what the heck am I going to name this thing? What am I going to name this? And my grandparents' names, their maiden names was Wright and Branch.
Mm.
So my grandmother's name, I was like, all right, wait a second. I think this one might hit. The Right Branch. And instead of RIGHT, it's going to be WRIGHT. So
Yes.
it's a play on words. So I ended up launching that. And the whole idea, I'm really big on transparency.
Mm.
I'm really big on authenticity. And I know for a fact my classmates got so tired of me because every time I said something, I was like, well, I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be authentic. I'm just going to be transparent. And they'll
Yes.
be like, it got to a point where we'll go into class and then I'll be like, well, I'm just gonna be out there. They'll be like, Terry, we know, okay, we know. Here you go with this authenticity again, okay? And I'm
Mm.
like, well, just hear me out, just hear me out. But so the whole idea of it is to foster a space where individuals can just be completely vulnerable, honest, and just true to who they are, and help them live, I always say, divinely in tune. And what that means is just helping them become one with themselves and live according to how they would like to live.
Mm.
And I'm very person centered, so I focus mainly on the client.
Yeah.
I like to call them consumers, but I just feel like it's a more appropriate term because I mean, I don't want to be considered a patient. You know what I mean? In a
Mm.
counseling setting, that doesn't feel like home for me.
Mm.
But when you go shopping and stuff, they call us consumers, and we'll spend all our money somewhere shopping because they make us feel at home, right? My
Yeah.
hope is to foster a space where people feel comfortable, they feel at home, and they're willing to not just meet with a counselor that's here for them to dump everything on, but this is a mutual thing. We're
Yeah.
working this thing together. And as invested as I am, I want you to be equally as invested. And it's important for me that you know that you have someone on your team who is going to walk through this with you. So I'm
Yeah.
not one of those counselors that's going to be like, all right, well, come back next week. You do your homework and whatever. I'm like, all right, well, you doing this? I'm going to do this with you. But I'm not doing all of this by myself.
Okay.
You got to meet me halfway. So, yeah, the Right Branch. That's
Love
where
you. So is
my
it?
heart has been. Hmm.
Go ahead. You said your heart has been what?
Yeah, I said that's where my heart has been for these last few months, trying to foster that.
Yes. So is it? Are your services? I'm assuming that with everything going on, that it's
Hmm.
gonna be virtually based right now, or I.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's virtually based right now and serving individuals in North Carolina.
Okay.
And my hope is to eventually start servicing individuals in other states,
Mm.
but for now, it's primary North Carolina.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, congratulations on the
Thank
right
you.
branch. Yes, I'm definitely proud of you with that. Um, so could you share? I know you had mentioned that your one of the purposes on with the services that you're providing is for others to help others redefine their narratives by owning their
Mhm.
identity. So, could you
Mhm.
share some reasons that you feel anyone should own their own identity?
Oh yeah. So I feel like without owning our identity, we don't know who we are. We can't identify purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everyone is here for a divine appointment. I believe that everyone is here for purpose.
Yeah.
And identifying purpose is very important to me because I think it stemmed from, I'm a twin. Like you said earlier, I'm a twin. And I think I got to a place where everyone, well, my sister and I, we both got to a place where we wanted people to see us as different people. We have our own identities,
Yeah.
right? So from from our childhood up to East Carolina, we were the twins.
Mm.
We were navigating life as the twins. Parents dressed us up to, to look alike all the time and everything. Then we get into school and we're like, oh, we're free. No, we're not free. We started having to wear uniforms all the
Um.
way until we graduated high school. So we
Dang.
still looked alike, you know?
Mm.
Um, and then when we got to East Carolina, I think we both made it a priority to know who we were,
Mm.
you know. And I think that was important for us because there was gonna there was a time where we would have to separate. We have been together for 23 years,
Mm.
22, 23 years of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Winston-Salem, and it became so vital for me to learn what my purpose was and
Mm.
who I was as Terrilyn. So in navigating that, I started like that imposter phenomenon. I thought I knew exactly who I was when I started the program. And when I entered that first semester, I quickly realized I did not know who I was anymore.
Wow.
I had lost all sense of the identity that I thought I had grown and knew when
Mm.
I was in Virginia. But in the midst of not knowing who I was, it was kind of like a blossoming effect, like the butterfly just spreading its wings
Yeah.
or the flower just blooming,
Yeah.
because it led me to a place of, in the midst of me not knowing myself, I was forced to have to explore who I was navigating this program. And I had taken on different roles while navigating this program. So I was no longer just a counselor.
Mm.
I took on the role of, so my program is rehabilitation counseling and counseling educator, rehabilitation counselor education. So I took on the role as not only a counselor, but I was learning how to be a supervisor. I was learning how to be a researcher. I was learning how to be a teacher. I was learning how to be a leader. I was learning how to be an advocate. I was learning how to do all of these things. And I was like, wait a second. Wait, this is too much.
Mm.
This is too much for me. I thought I did not know I was going to have to take on all of these personas or all these roles
Mm-hmm.
while navigating this program. Who the heck am I? And then in that second year, it started to make sense of where I was going. And one of my professors used to always say, if you could find one good professor that you are able to just dump and be real with, you stick close to them,
Mm.
and you utilize their mentorship, and you experience growth with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. And in sharing my frustrations and in sharing my journey of imposter phenomenon, or in sharing my journey of thinking that I knew myself prior to starting the program and then not knowing who the heck I was, she and I had a number of mentors. So she and he kind of birthed this concept that, you have to be okay with the development that's taking place. And I know that you keep saying that you don't know who you are. And that the reality of it is you don't know who you are anymore, because the identity that you had prior to this is gone.
Mm.
You're forced to have to reincarnate or kind of learn you again. So
Yeah.
I came face to face with having to take on a different view of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing when you have people in your life that's willing to kind of force you into saying, all right, you need to know your purpose. You need to redefine what it is. If you don't know your purpose, you have to find somebody that's willing to be invested and help call those things out. Because what, and this is going to sound so bad and it's so cliche, but what good is living if you don't have purpose driving the act of living? You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with that.
what, like, I don't want to go aimlessly through life.
Yes.
I don't.
That's a good word.
And yeah, so I think that I was forced into a place of trying to identify my purpose. And now I know what my purpose is. I think I feel like I've tried to run away from it a lot. I'm human. I think we all do that.
Yeah.
But but I'm settling in with it, and I've been more at peace. I've never had a sense of peace the way that I have lately. And it's, if you want to live a driven life and a life that's like, oh my God, I wake up in the morning. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to hit hurdles, of
Right.
course. There will be adversity. When you have purpose, there's heavy adversity that comes with it. But it's the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful
Yes.
thing to have purpose and live for that.
Yeah. I'm okay. I'm gonna go to a question that I was gonna ask you later on, but you kind of hit on it right now. So I'm just like, okay, you know what? We're gonna jump into it and then we're gonna come back. So you said that you found your purpose. What do you feel like it
Mhm.
is, like, to be more specific, I guess? What do you feel like your purpose is?
I think I've always expected this grand definition of what my purpose is. But purpose can be so um, astounding, even in like minor statements, if you will. Like, I feel like my purpose is just here to be present and to help others,
Yeah.
to serve others. And the best way that I can do that is counsel people. I'm an empathic person. So without people telling me what's going on, I can feel their energy in what's going on in this situation. So I have a few choices. I have a few things that I could either, you know, I could do with that. I could run from that and not fulfill my purpose, or I could run to it and fulfill purpose, be present with that individual and shift their atmosphere, or
Yeah.
kind of make meaning of the adversities they're facing by just being present and providing counsel.
Yes.
So I think that me being a counselor is the most beneficial way for me to do that.
Love that.
Hmm.
Um, Whenever I ask that question, well, not whenever, but most of the time, the response is, "Well, I don't know if we ever find our purpose."
Hmm.
And I honestly, I feel like that can be true sometimes. That can definitely be true, or maybe
Hmm.
you're, like you had said earlier, you're just fighting against it. But I
Hmm.
also feel I'm a believer in that everybody kind of has the same purpose, generalized as helping the next person, like uplift the
Yeah.
next person to
Yeah.
prepare for their purpose. Now, how you do that is going to be different across the board. Like,
Yeah.
yours is with counseling. Counseling is in a way generalized, but you're doing it in a specific manner. Specific manner. Let me correct
Yeah.
that.
No, I was just gonna say, I used to think, I remember someone asked me back when I was little, and they said, "So what do you want to be when you grow up, Terry?" And I had a list of things I wanted to be. I wanted to be a lawyer, I wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be a nurse, and then I remember specifically someone came to me and they asked me, "So what do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be a minister." And I think it there were little callings here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, I haven't shared this with many people, but I got to a space where I was about to go to school for seminary before I started my program.
Mm.
You know, I was thinking about that heavily, and I went into this doc program, but it started making sense to me in terms of my counseling, because for you to minister to someone, it doesn't have to be a religious, spiritual, you know, it doesn't have to be me standing in the pulpit preaching to folks. You know, it doesn't, and I think that's where we kind of miss, like, yeah, I do agree that sometimes we may not identify purpose, but I think sometimes people may be in that space of not identifying purpose because we think it's supposed to look one way when it can be detiered and present in a different way.
Yeah.
Because what would it have looked like if I thought I was supposed to be a minister? I didn't want to be a minister, but I'm not fulfilling purpose because I think I have to be in a pulpit preaching to folks. Instead, I can minister through counseling.
Yes.
You know, so what does that look like? And I think that when I started thinking of it from that perspective, it shifted things. You know, and I'm at peace with that. I think that this is the most fitting ministry for me. And two, something else I did prior to moving was I was a worship leader. So that fulfilled purpose too. You know, serving people and authentically pushing them to the presence of God. That was my way of purpose. And that's the same thing, even though I'm not a Christian counselor, I'm not credentialed as a Christian counselor, I'm still doing the same thing, pushing them to a sense of, I don't have to talk about God for them to experience him, you know? Yeah. So just being present with you, you can experience something that ministers to your soul, whatever way that looks like. You take it how you need it. That's my approach when I'm working with people. You take it how you need it, you know, but here it is.
Yes.
So that's my perspective of finding purpose.
Yes. All right. So we're going to rewind it back because I know I took you from just some reasons on just owning your identity. But to go back to that, what do you feel like, or what advice would you give to those who may be listening and also struggling with owning their own identity? What advice would you give them?
I love asking people this. I typically ask my clients or consumers or whatever, when I'm talking to friends, I ask them this too. I say, how do you extend grace to yourself? In what ways do you extend grace to yourself? And I think that's my favorite question, because we extend grace to so many other things and to people, but we don't necessarily do that for ourselves. And I think we expect to have our identity planned out. Just because you're 30, 40, 50 doesn't mean, you know, you have to know who you are in that second, because the reality of it is life shifts. Life is nonlinear and it's complex. So things happen all the time that shifts us from who we were to somewhere that we have to go. And the best example of that is this pandemic. All of us knew who we were before this, you know? And then in the midst of it, we're having to readjust so much. But I think the advice that I would give in identifying identity or navigating your identity is just being patient with yourself and giving yourself grace, and being aware of you, kind of spending time with yourself. I think it was your page that I saw not too long ago where you asked if people date themselves. How often do you date yourself?
Yeah.
That's a way to learn you. That's a way of identifying your, just being one with your identity. Because how are you going to, if you're seeking relationship or you're seeking intimacy or anything, how are you going to share who you are and what you like and all of these things if you don't know what you like?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So I think that, and it's going to be uncomfortable, of course, just sitting there being present with yourself and, dating yourself here and there. But I think is needed.
Yes.
You have to, the same way you bond and get a connection with everyone else, you have to do that with yourself to know who you are.
Yeah. During this pandemic, I definitely have been forced, like you had said, to, just sit with myself and learn about myself.
Hmm.
And, you know, even like just reflecting back on past relationships, like, oh, yeah, well, I understand why they probably was upset about that now. Because I'm dealing
Yeah,
with that by myself.
yeah.
Like, okay, so mark that down. That's something we got to work on or whatever. Or, this
Hmm.
is actually something that I love about myself, and I need to just like honor that a lot more. Just like really paying attention, just being more self-aware. And as
Yeah.
much as it was uncomfortable in the beginning, I have learned to really like accept it and enjoy the process, because I feel like
Hmm.
I have something to look forward to. Especially like once this pandemic is done, like I feel more confident that I'll be able to hit the ground running, knowing that
Yeah.
more about myself and remaining true to myself, like genuinely true to myself. So,
Yeah. I had a friend who used to always ask me, he said, "You just sound like you know yourself so well. Like, how are you this mindful of you?" And I was like, I do a lot of self
I,
reflection. It's just me, my books, and my dog. I'm not married. I'm not dating. I
mm-hmm,
don't have any kids.
okay,
So it's just me. It's just me.
right.
So, and it was while I was trying to navigate the program. So I said, I get to spend a lot of time by myself while I'm doing these papers and reading these articles and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So of course I have, if I don't know myself in this space, then I don't know what's gonna, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just clueless.
No, that's so true. We definitely have. That's the benefit of being single and having a spot to yourself. Like, you definitely have more than enough time to do that, especially during this pandemic.
Mhm.
So, oh gosh, I didn't even think about that, because it does look a lot different for somebody who's actually in a relationship or living with that person or
Mhm.
has a family. Like, your time, the slots might be a little different for when you have time to
Yeah.
learn more about yourself. But huh, I'm thankful for what I got now. Um, Girl, because I don't know how I would have been able to go through this pandemic with like living with an actual
Ooh,
human being. I just don't know how patient I would
me
be.
either. My dog is enough for me. He goes
Okay.
by me and whine, and I'm like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always be wanting to like just to have moments of like taking a shower with not hearing any whining and just being in the
Right.
moment. But oh my gosh, I'm like, okay, let me just, I'll take you outside when I get out, okay?
Right. I'm like, you have your food. Leave me alone.
Please and thank
So,
you. Please and thank you. Okay. So we're coming to the end of the interview, which has been amazing, but I do still have a few questions. So with
mhm.
everything that's been going on with you in this season of your life, you've just completed your program. You've moved recently to New
Mhm.
Jersey for a
Mhm.
job. Well, let's actually jump into that. So you were offered a job outside, where once you finished your program. Congratulations. How is that going?
Thank
How
you.
is the move? How's the new scenery? You moved to New Jersey from North Kakalaki. Like, I know that's a whole different situation in itself. But anyways, I'm gonna let you answer
Yeah.
the first question. How is that? How's the move going?
It's good. I'm trying to adjust. Oh, my voice went high. But I mean, I honestly, I mean every bit of that. Because usually when my voice jumps that high, it's like, ah, well. But I am enjoying this space. Like, I always wanted to live in a loft, right? And I
Hmm.
used to always say, I'm going to live in a loft before I get a house. And I had the hardest time trying to find an apartment.
Mm.
And I got to a place where I was like, you know what, forget this. But then all of a sudden, man, I'm telling you, Jesus be listening. So
Okay.
all of a sudden, I get a loft. And then the
Yes.
whole thought comes back to me where I was like, because this was years ago when I said, I'm going to live in a loft before I get a house. So I'm getting hype and I'm like, oh, you got a house in store for me now?
Yes.
So I'm enjoying it. I posted on Instagram when my birthday came around. That was May 7th. I stated that I that my last year was a year of preparation. This
Mm.
year would be a year of provisions and prophecies being fulfilled.
Mm.
And I feel like when you say something, be ready for it because
Ooh.
it has blown my mind so far, you know.
Yeah.
And we're only 3 months in, almost from when my birthday was. So
Wow.
it's it's blowing my mind. I'm just sitting here trying to adjust now, but the scenery has been great. I've been going out exploring a little bit,
Mm.
so I'm just excited.
Yes. Like just a new
Yes,
environment, new chapter, new everything. That's what's up.
yes.
It, side note, how is like during the pandemic? Like, is it like pretty calm out there? Are people out there with masks, or they living their best lives? Like,
You know, I see a lot of people with their masks because I think New Jersey was amongst one of the states that were their numbers were pretty high at the start of the pandemic. But I
yeah.
went to a store not too long ago, like last week. My brother helped me move, and we both went in there. We had on our mask, and the man who was serving us had on his mask, and he was like, "You know, our numbers. We're one of the only states that our numbers are going down. They just keep on declining because we're
Mm.
following the rules,
I
what the governor said." And I was like, oh, I'm happy I'm here then,
yes.
you know?
Okay, New
And
Jersey.
so, yeah, but where I live is like a downtown area. So there's not many people. Yeah, I
Mm.
don't see many people out and
Okay.
about
Gotcha.
at all.
They're
When I
taking
see them,
it.
they have on their mask. So I
Okay.
think people are taking precautions
Yeah.
heavily.
I know that's
Hmm.
right. Look, Georgia might have to take some notes from New Jersey.
Yeah, and every store, everywhere you go, it's like you must have a cloth mask,
Uh,
and if you don't, you will not get in.
Okay. Straight like that.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Um. All right. Well, shoot. Let me find out. I've never been to New Jersey, but it sounds like New Jersey got their act together.
Yes.
um. So one of the last questions that I ask all of my guests is, if you could speak to your younger self today, what would you tell her to avoid, and what would you tell her to look forward to?
Mm. I would tell her to avoid um, comparison.
Mm.
Uh, your journey is your journey, and it's it'll be beautifully written. Don't rush it. Um, and yeah, that's what would tell myself, my younger self.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
uh, where I'm going, just my sister always say, "Buckle up, Buttercup." And that's where that's where I am right now. Like, get ready, cause
Yes. Yes.
this is gonna be a nice little journey, and just embrace what's to come.
Mm. Yes. Just
Yeah. And
prepare.
just be true to you. Don't change.
Mm.
Because at the beginning of this, I said that I'm very modest. I believe wholeheartedly in being humble. That's just how I've always been. But I'm learning to, and I think the reason why I said, "Oh yeah, I'm modest," is because I'm still trying to get used to this whole Dr. Terrillyn thing. Like it's still, when it falls on my ears, I'm like, "Ooh, who is that? That's me? Oh,
That be you. Yeah.
you talking to me?" you know. So I think I'm still in a place of getting adjusted to that as well, because
Yeah.
it just, you go through all the work for the program, and then once it happens, you're like, "Oh,
Well
so this
deserved.
this is it, huh?" But just remain true to who you are.
Yes.
That's something that I would tell myself for the future.
Yes. And what
Mm.
do you do? I'm not going to let that be the last question because I do have some more that I'm curious on. What do you do to celebrate you? Like, what's something that you
To
just,
celebrate myself,
mm-hmm.
hmm. Something I do is, like I said, I love nature. So I find peace in the most simple things, like jumping in my car, just driving somewhere that I have never explored before.
Mm-hmm.
And coffee shops. I absolutely adore cute little coffee
Yes.
shops. So my celebration may look a little different. I'm happy with going to some coffee shop I've never been to before, getting me
Mm-hmm.
a little latte, and just
Yes.
walking the block and finding a mural or two and some pictures, and just being at peace.
Yes.
Another thing is just being able to spend time with my family. I'm very family oriented.
Mm.
So something as simple as sitting and watching a movie with my family is, that's celebratory enough for me,
Yeah.
because I
That's
try to
it.
take advantage of those little moments. Yeah,
Yes.
little but big moments.
Oh, make a difference moment. I
Oh
definitely
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
So, what can we expect from Terry in the next year?
Mm, I'm hoping to. I would love for my business to thrive, and then host like women's sessions and different things like that, where we talk about um, self perceptions and identity and different things. And something that I would like to put energy into is this little piece of demystifying the imposter.
Mm.
That's something that I kind of put into place under the right branch, and that's focusing mainly on identity and kind of denouncing the idea of being a fraud or an imposter.
Yeah.
So my hope is to get that up and going, and host like, and like monthly or bi-monthly retreats or something, whether it's virtual. Hope, yeah, right now it will be virtual, but just pulling a lot of women together and making it a space where we could share our stories of feeling in like an imposter, and not taking on that identity
Mm.
as our own, but acknowledging it, because when you acknowledge it, there's space for change and growth, and you're allowing other people to see it as, like I said, as a feeling, but it doesn't have to be your narrative. So I think there's power when we're able to say, all right, this is the perception that I had, but it's not who I am.
Yes.
So I think I would love to create a space where women are able to kind of normalize those feelings.
Yes. No, I love that idea.
Mhm.
Definitely looking forward to
Thank
hearing
you.
more about that. If you want
Thank
to
you.
share how the listeners can continue to follow you on your journey and connect with you.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Terrillyn underscore Renee, TERRILYN underscore RENEE. And my business page is the right branch underscore PLLC. DWRIGHT branch underscore PLLC. And yeah, and then if there's anyone interested in counseling or anything, I can be reached at www.therightbranch, um, yeah, therightbranch.com. So yeah.
Noise, noise, real official. All right. Well, thank you so much, Terry, for joining me and sharing your story, your truth with me, with us. Definitely really appreciate it and really enjoy the conversation. I'm looking forward to what's coming up next and following your journey too. But this is the closing of the interview. So
But thank you.
yeah, girl,
Thank you.
you is welcome. You is welcome. Okay. So that closes out this episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Honestly Honest podcast. Please, please, please feel free to leave a review rating of this podcast, and just share it with friends, family, whoever you feel like could connect with this and could use this to uplift them in their journey. But look out for the next episode, which will be launched next week.